You might think buying an off-the-plan apartment has potential because it's in such a good location. But today, I'm gonna prove to you why buying an off-the-plan apartment could literally be one of the worst property investment decisions you've ever made. If you have a friend who's about to buy off-the-plan, send this episode to them because we're about to cover exactly what the data says over the long term and why off-the-plan is not how true property investors create wealth. But don't take my opinions for it. Let's jump into the data right now. I'm Junge Ma. Let's get into it. So in this episode, let's go through 5 statements that we usually hear about how good off-the-plan apartments are, and let's bust them one by one. So, statement number 1. Off-the-plan is an affordable option to enter a big city market. In many cases, you can pay as low as 5% deposit to secure an apartment, especially when there is developer promotion, or you're a first home buyer, or if it's a big developer and they offer flexible deposit terms. In many cases, you can use as low as 5% deposit to secure an apartment. Sometimes the developers would have promotions. Sometimes a big developer can have a flexible deposit terms. Or if you're a first home buyer, I believe many developers have their first home buyer schemes, in addition to government grants. That sounds really attractive, especially if you're in a really expensive market like Sydney. Sydney's median house price now is above 1.4 million, while unit median price is now just around 800,000. And if you're looking at a 1-bedroom because you're a first home buyer, it could be even lower, like in the 6s. Again, pretty attractive, right? But before you really get into it, I want you to calculate your opportunity cost by locking yourself in this apartment for 2 to 3 years instead of buying something established in a different location. So let's use some suburbs as examples. Say in 2023, you've got 70,000 in savings and you want to get into the property market. You're in Sydney, so naturally you would like to buy something in Sydney. With that deposit, you couldn't have bought a house and you wanted something new and shiny, so you decided to buy an off-the-plan apartment in the suburb of Wentworth Point. Wentworth Point is full of fancy apartments and they're developed by a well-known developer, so it sounds safe and a great choice. In 2023, your deposit could probably afford a 1-bedroom apartment off the plan, around 650,000. So you put down your deposit and waited for settlement. In 2025, 2 years later, when the settlement came, based on the suburb unit market data, the value of that apartment should have gone up by 4.4%. And now, let's go back to 2023 and see if you didn't go for this 1-bed apartment, but went for somewhere out of Sydney. Let's see what you could have got. I'll give you 2 examples. One is Annandale, a suburb in Townsville in North Queensland. And then the second example is Happy Valley in Adelaide. So Annandale. Back in 2023, the median house price there was $470,000, well below the apartment price in Sydney. And after 2 years, median house price there is $670,000. That is 42% growth in just 2 years. And that is 10 times of the unit value growth. And then Happy Valley in Adelaide. If you're a fan of capital cities, Adelaide should seem safer than Townsville, so you may feel more comfortable with Happy Valley. In 2023, the median house price there was $630,000, just as much as the 1-bedroom apartment in Sydney. And then after 2 years, the median price in that suburb is $786,000. And that is 25% increase in value. Through the comparison, I guess it's easy to see that by putting your money in this asset that doesn't grow really well over time, you're losing lots of potential growth. So let's summarize. If you had bought the Wentworth apartment, you would get 4.4% growth. If you went to Townsville, Annandale, you would have achieved 42% value growth. And then if you went to Adelaide, Happy Valley, you would have got 25% in value growth in 2 years. And it's not just those suburbs. In the long term, units in general don't perform as well as houses, especially when there is oversupply issues, such as in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, these big cities with large numbers of apartments. I'll give you some numbers. Greater Sydney, in the past 10 years, house prices went up by 78%. And over the same period, unit prices only went up by 22%. So that is more than 3 times difference. And then Melbourne's house prices went up by 53%, and its unit prices went up by just 23%. And Brisbane's unit market didn't do really bad. Value increased by 64% over the 10 years. But it's not as good as how the houses have performed. And how much have the houses grown? 101% in 10 years. So as you can see, it seems cheaper to enter a big market. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will achieve a good growth when you make this decision. And the second statement is off-the-plan properties or off-the-plan apartments usually have amazing facilities like pool, gym, sauna, and so on. While they do look great, if you live in a building, you may enjoy them a lot, but for an investment property, they may be bad ideas because they do affect your cash flow day by day. Here are 3 examples here, all very nice buildings. The thing is, the more facilities you have or the fancier facilities you have, the more likely you'll be paying high strata levies. Here I have 3 examples in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. First one, 82 Hay Street in Haymarket. That project is named Darling Rise. It has pool, gym, community meeting rooms, and rooftop gardens for barbecue. Take a 2-bedroom apartment in that building, for example. The quarterly strata levy is now $1,833, and that will be annualized to $7,332 per year. In this building, the weekly rent of a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment is $1,500, and your annual strata fee is approximately 4.7 times of your weekly rent. Imagine you're having 5 extra weeks of vacancy. To me, that's huge loss. And in this scenario, you don't really need to imagine because that's actually what's it costing you. And now our second example in Melbourne is a 2-bedroom apartment in South Bank Grand in Melbourne. Similar to Darling Rise, it also has pool, gym, barbecue area, and so on. The quarterly strata levy here is $1,339 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And its weekly rent would be $660. So that is 8 times of your weekly rent. 2 months of extra vacancy. Now the third example, River Park Central in Brisbane. Again, a 2-bedroom apartment. In the building, we have pool, gym, barbecue area, and everything. The quarterly strata levy here is $2,482. And then the weekly rent is $810. Strata levy would be 12 times of your weekly rent. And that is 3 extra months of vacancy. That feels painful. Now, how does buying off the plan sound so far? Then the third statement, you have more time to prepare for finance. For this statement, let's forget about how badly unit markets or off-the-plan apartments would grow. Let's just compare buying now versus buying in 2 years when you have more cash for deposit or when you have higher borrowing capacity. I've made this little model, assuming now that you have $120,000 in savings or equity and you can save $30,000 per year. And all the investment properties you're going to buy will sustain themselves, meaning you will not put in any money out of your pocket and you can still save $30,000 per year. Now with your $120,000 deposit, you can comfortably afford a $600,000 property. Let's assume that the average annual growth will be 6%. In 2035, that is 10 years time, this property will give you 79% value growth. And then at the same time, over 10 years, you would have saved $300,000, assuming you're not buying anything else. And then in a different scenario, you don't think buying a $600,000 property is a good idea. You want to save more and you want to get pay rises so that you can afford a better property in 2 years. Your borrowing capacity can afford you a $900,000 house. And from 2027 to 2035, that property will give you a 59% value growth plus 8 years of extra saving of $240,000. So comparing these two scenarios, one, you're getting 79% in value growth and 300,000 extra savings. And two, you're getting 59% in value growth and 240,000 extra savings. Which do you think is better? That's why we always say time in the market is always better than timing the market. State number 4, it's a brand new building. It's low maintenance. It sounds like right, but unexpected things could happen. I'll give you just one example here. We've seen a lot of examples of unexpected issues, and now here I'm just gonna give you one of them. There is this apartment building called Harbour Mill Apartments in Piermont, Sydney. It was sold off the plan in 2012, settled in 2015. Just 2 years later, in 2017, the Grenfell Tower fire happened in London, and soon after that, this building's cladding was detected as high risk and needed remediation. The estimated cost for the remediation is 14 million. It will be partially funded by the New South Wales government, but it will be partially borne by the residents. According to an article in January 2025, the special levy for owners of that building would range from 70,000 for a one-bedroom apartment to 220,000 for the largest penthouse owner. So yeah, bad things can happen. For anyone wondering what is a special levy, in its simplest form, it's the bill the owner of the apartment has no choice but to pay in case of extra repairs or works that have to be done. I just want you to imagine for a second. I handed you a bill of 220,000 and you had no choice but paying it. I want you to think of that image next time you're handed an off-the-plan brochure, because this is a genuine risk. I know this is a bit extreme, but this happens on a smaller scale as well. And this is the risk of owning an apartment, especially a newly built one, that's rarely spoken about. Number 5, depreciation can save me a lot on tax. Getting a bigger tax refund always feels good, but not at the expense of capital growth. In this comparison I've got here, buying a house in Brisbane versus an apartment in Sydney, the depreciation schedule would save us 16,000 in tax over 5 years. That sounds great. However, like I said, not at the expense of capital growth. So that's the tax depreciation would be saving you each year. Let's assume that with the same amount of money we're buying this Granville apartment, we bought a house in Brisbane in 2021 before the COVID boom when it was still affordable. Let's see how different the two properties have grown over time. If we have to specify a suburb, that would be Aspley, where median house price was 600,000 back in 2021. This apartment over the same time frame has grown by $61,000. You remember the house in Brisbane? That has grown by 482,000, which is why I'm happy to lose the 16,000 tax savings to achieve almost 500,000 value growth. So in summary, buying an off-the-plan unit might make you feel that you're in a great location and you're making a really smart move. But like I've just shown you, the capital growth is nowhere near the same as houses. And that's not my opinion. That's what the data says. Not only that, but the cash flow can be worse too. The yield might look attractive, but some of the strata fees can be astronomical. And let's not forget the potential surprise of the special levy. Finance can take you even longer. And finally, depreciation is a great bonus to have, but not when it comes at the cost of serious capital growth. I'm Junge Ma. I hope you never buy an off-the-plan apartment as an investment property, and I'll see you on the next episode.